Welcome to the Esports Report, a monthly podcast about Georgia high school esports programs and important gaming news. Hosted by Ashley Hodge, the Georgia Play VS Super Coach, Riot RSAA board member, GHSA Esports Advisory Board member, and esports researcher. Sit back, relax, and plug in.
Welcome back to the Esports Report. Listen, I am so sorry that I dropped off the face of the planet. It gets super busy for educators. I can't do this and work a full-time job, so it is what it is. I'll post when I can. Please continue to support me. It's free. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to be talking about the 2024 Play versus Esports season for the spring that did finish up, obviously, before the summer. First and foremost, this is just a very late reminder for me, for coaches, that if you are involved in any kind of GSA sport, that you do your coaches clinic. For us, it was March 21st is when it was due in the spring. I don't even want to think about what was going on in March as an educator. But GHSA has been warning us coaches for a bunch of different years and through many different messages that if we don't do these coaches clinics, that our programs could be fined. So please make sure that you do that before the upcoming 2024 fall season of esports that will start around September, I think. I'll end up having to look at those dates for the upcoming season and get that out for an episode. But back to the coaches clinic, just make sure that if you are a coach or if you are interested in being a coach, that you do these coaches clinics. Now, to do this, remember you have to go to GHSA's website, go to the coaches and AD tab, select rules clinic, and find the one for esports. If you don't have an account, you will have to make one. And what you do is you just watch videos and answer questions, and then you're going to get the certificate at the end that you're going to want to print out and save. So for the spring season, this last season that we had 4 titles that were played in Georgia as state championship titles. It was Splatoon 3, Rocket League, Madden 24, and NBA 2K. Other titles were offered, but there will be no state championship for those titles. Those titles that I did not just mention were included in the previous 2023 fall season of esports. So with Georgia, we rotate our different game titles for championships because Play Versus offers so many games, it would be impossible to do all those games for both seasons. So just keep that in mind if you didn't know that before. So I just want to cover a couple of things in the rules clinic going forward for this upcoming season. In the rules clinic, Tanya Anderson, our GHSA Associate Director, emphasized a couple of important things that I think need to be included in this podcast for all coaches moving forward with our next season. The very first thing that is a very important topic of concern being brought up by GHSA is 1, sportsmanship, 2, forfeiting without letting opponents know in a timely manner. Tanya has stated in our spring coaches clinic that first and foremost, sportsmanship should be the primary focus of your program. And I agree with this statement. You know, sportsmanship covers a lot of different aspects of participating in a team sport, you know, for students, for coaches. I think for coaches, sportsmanship should include the following things. 1, starting your esports matches on time. For Georgia, all of the game times start at 4. Now, I can understand 4:05, 4:10, 4:15 start time, but 4:30 start time, which technically is allowed, but to me, that's unsportsmanship like that. You might not be ready to go when you're supposed to. I can't imagine a football game not starting on time because another team wasn't ready to go. It's just not heard of. And we shouldn't allow, esports to be treated any differently, because if you start treating esports differently from these other programs like football, we're never going to have the same amount of respect, I think. So for me, it's very important that esports matches start on time. And I'm sorry if you're a coach and you've come across me and I'm in that chat, in our little play versus chat, by like 3:50 messaging the other coach, "Hey, I'm here. Everything's good. We're ready to go." Usually I try to do that. And if you if you don't respond to me, not by 3:50 obviously, but if it's like 4:15 and I still haven't heard from you, you can start to expect phone calls from me, emails from me blowing up the chat. And I am sorry. I have tried to like rein that in a little bit for myself. But again, I can't imagine a football game not starting on time, a tennis game not starting on time, any kind of game not starting on time because somebody else isn't ready. So that's why it's important, like prior to your start times, if you're able. And I know that sometimes you're not able. At my previous school, I barely had time to get down to the esports lab and update the computers and things like that. So I know things like that can get in the way. But there was, and this is this is a crazy story, and I won't name the school, but we were playing on consoles. I won't name the console, but we were playing on consoles, and the other team's console, quit working. And that's unavoidable. Something weird happens with technology. I'm more than willing to work with you on that, reschedule, whatever. What the team ended up doing is they ran to their local Walmart, which was, I don't know, it took them like 20, 30 minutes to get to the Walmart. And then they went and bought a system and came back and then tried to hook the system up. So needless to say, we didn't get started when we should have. And, that's a big deal. Like, because I'm trying to think of how to say this. Some of my students work, and even on game days, they have to, by 7 or 8 o'clock, they should be done with a game that starts at 4 o'clock, especially if it's like a short game like Rocket League. Now, League of Legends and Madden is a different story because those games can last a very long time. But my point being with all this rambling is all the equipment, all of the updates, all of that needs to be done before 4 o'clock if you are able. What I do is I will have my esports athletes, if they're playing on a PS5 or we're playing on some kind of console or whatever, I have them bring that to me at the beginning of the day, and I will set it up during my planning period or any kind of downtime I have, and like do the updates and do the system checks. And that way by 4 o'clock, we're ready to go. So just keep that in mind. I understand that things happen. I understand kids don't show up when they're supposed to, but moving forward, if you can, as a coach, try to start your games within like, I would say 15 minutes. I wouldn't wait until 4:20, 4:30. And also I would recommend just being present and being able to communicate with the other coach, because that's another thing. I know that schools are big and they have multiple games going on. I ran 10 Rocket League teams by myself at a very large program. What was it easy? Absolutely not. Was it hard? Yes. And that was before Play Versus introduced this team captain concept where you could select one student to run your match assistant for you. So when I ran my large program, I had already assigned students who would kind of like team captains like what Play Versus has done. And that would be the student who would get the game set up, who would talk to the other students, and then, I would be physically there if they needed something from me. And that's how I did it. And I understand that maybe your school doesn't have students like that you can trust or whatever. However, that's not the opponent's fault. Games should be started when they should be started. Games shouldn't be getting started at 4:30 unless there's been some kind of serious issue. And I would define a serious issue as, a physical injury sustained by a player. But even then, Play Versus and JHSA doesn't excuse that in one of their bylaws, because we had a Madden student one time break his leg the day before he had a match. And I think we reached out to the school and they would not reschedule with us. So he wheeled in there in his wheelchair and a crutch, and we got him set up, but we would have taken that loss. But me, if another school had a physical injury sustained by a player, I would be like, yeah, let's reschedule. Hardware or network issue, sometimes stuff just doesn't work and it blows up. For example, that previous story I just told about the school whose console didn't work, we would have been more than happy to reschedule that match. They didn't have to go out that day and go buy a console and try to get it all set up and stuff. And network issues, sometimes your IT people are not available and they have done an update and your stuff doesn't work anymore. I totally get that. More than happy to reschedule. Illness, sickness, kids can't help that. Death in family, students can't help that. And then, bad weather, environmental hazard, things like that. And I'm sure there's more I can add to that list of like things that are serious issues that should qualify for games being rescheduled. But these are just kind of the major ones that I can think of. And games, they just run late. So I'm thinking about when I have League of Legends teams, you could be in one game for 20 minutes or one game for 40 minutes, 60 minutes, depending on how the match is going. And so if you don't get started till 4:30 and a game is like an hour long and you got to play 3 of them, that's a long time. That's a long time. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm very guilty about spamming the chat box to try to get some kind of response from students and coaches. Again, around 3:50, 4 o'clock, I'm logged in. My students are logged in. We're ready to communicate through the match assistant, and we're good to go. Generally, I try to email the coach. I'll find their email in the Play Versus website once you log in, and I'll email them at the beginning of the day as soon as I get a chance. Hey, looking forward to our match between Hot Diggity Dog versus the Red Rocket League Team 01 at 4. So, something like that. And sometimes people will respond and sometimes they won't. But I think that if you know as a coach that you're going to be late or something is wrong, just reach out to the other school and let them know. You can simply email them and say, hey, we're having problems with blah, blah, blah. We might be late getting started because of blah, blah, blah. Communication just goes a long way, not showing up, not letting anybody know that is when you have problems. Because not only is that bad sportsmanship, you're actually harming the integrity of the esports ecosystem. And what I mean by that is, we want students to have as much fun as possible in a safe esports environment. And when you have people who don't show up, who cause forfeits, that's not fun for the students who want to play, who want to participate. And it's not fun or fair for students who take these forfeits to have lower rankings because they didn't get to actually play a match. So, it makes the ecosystem less fun. It hurts the matchmaking system. And, it's just overall aggravating for students and coaches who feel like their time has been wasted. So just keep that in mind. Now, I will say sometimes there is a delay in the chat versus chat feature. I have been guilty of this. The first time it happened, I did not think that somebody was responding to me, and it turns out that there was just a slight delay. So if you see messages pop up in your chat feature, please respond. And then, of course, if you don't know how to run the match assistant, let the students do it or team captains do it. It's just an expectation, And that brings me to point number 2, about sportsmanship, and that is using the match assistant correctly or teaching your team captains to use it correctly. So the match assistant, listen, guys, I know I've talked about this. I think in nearly every single episode, you do not understand what esports was like before the match assistant. You don't understand. Any of the other OG coaches will understand what it was like. You had to be on the phone with the other coach or talk to them through Discord to do all of the match setup. So that means if you're playing Super Smash, I had to be on the phone with somebody talking about, what kind of maps we were playing, who the characters were, and I only have one cell phone. I can't be running 10 matches on one cell phone. So Match Assistant, fantastic, great addition. You need to use it. It's very straightforward. Okay. You click through a series of prompts. You log into your account, you go to match day or game day, you open the match, and then it's just right there on the right, and they're like bright orange buttons. Continue, next, and you just need to click the buttons and go through the series of prompts until you can record your match or game results. So the home team is going to put in the score and the other team confirms it. And then the second match begins and the third until the process is over. And I'm making a big deal out of this because according to Play Versus, the winning team is responsible for making sure that the results are recorded. So if the match assistant isn't done correctly by both teams, those results do not get recorded. You get an email from Play Versus asking for the match results or further information. And this can be a huge problem for bigger schools or schools who have multiple teams. If you've got 5 teams, you want that match assistant to run smoothly because you don't want a second game to be starting when you haven't inputted the results from the first game. So it's very important that as soon as a game ends, you put those results in. So there's no, confusion later. There is no other GHSA sport where there is a delay in getting game results. It happens real time. So it's very important that, if you have students who are doing that match assistant, that they know, hey, before we start the second game, we need to put in these game 1 results. And I'll go ahead and tell you the most esports game that I had this problem with was Madden. A lot of times in Madden, the students would want to go ahead and start the second game, and the first game wouldn't be inputted the right way. I would be messaging the student captain or the coach or whoever was in the chat, and they would not respond to me. So, please make sure moving forward that you put those results in the match assistant as soon as possible before even starting that second or third match. And then the third thing I want to talk about in terms of sportsmanships with coaches is requesting reschedules in advance if possible. I say if possible because I myself know on game day, sometimes the student just doesn't show up and they don't let you know. And you need a reschedule if you don't have any substitute players. I get it. I always try to do it a day in advance when possible. However, Tanya mentioned in the coaches clinic that just not showing up, not contacting your opponent is not considered sportsmanship-like conduct. And she even stated, and this is a direct quote from the coaches clinic, that fines and fees will be issued to coaches and students behaving in an unsportsmanlike manner. She also stated in the coaches clinic that coaches should review the GHSA Constitution and bylaws located in the website. Now, I have done a deep dive on that in a previous episode, therefore I'm not going to review them again until there are major changes. However, these are some main takeaways that you need to be aware of with these bylaws. Number one is that all students must be academically eligible. What does that mean? That's bylaw 1.50. That means that you had to submit your names to your athletic director for an eligibility check. And I think that has to be done within like 30 or even 60 days before the season starts. So it's got to be done really fast. I remember being shocked when I found out like the number of days that you have to submit that. I'm pretty sure it's 30. I'll have to double check that. Students cannot, number 2 for these bylaws is students cannot be a migrant student. That's bylaw 160. I'm sorry. About to answer what I just said about the days. Number 3, eligibility reports must be filed digitally 20 days prior to the first day of competition. Okay, so it's 20 days, not 30 or 60. I still remember being shocked by that 20 days. So that was something that I recently learned. So yes, your eligibility reports must be filed within 20 days before competition starts. And student amateur esports status. This is very important because I'm going to have to look this up, but GHSA just did something. I'm trying to think in terms of amateur status that you also need to be aware of. I'm going to have to find it real quick. Oh, there it is. Okay, I found it. But before I go into that, let's talk about amateur status. Student amateur esports status. This is bylaw 190. Basically what this means is your player should participate in an esport for the sport and not monetary gain. So any player forfeits that amateur status when they participate in events that result in money or other financial awards, except for scholarship money. So while they are participating in GHSA esports, they cannot participate in anything outside of that would result in them getting money or financial award, unless it's scholarship money. They will also forfeit their amateur status if they sign a professional esports contract or hire an agent to manage their career. So if, you're on Twitch, you're on YouTube, and you are streaming your esports games, and then you suddenly hire somebody to boost that career, and you sign a contract with them, that will eliminate your amateur sports status. Students that have violated the status will not be able to compete on your esports teams. So that is one thing. And then the other thing that recently happened is, and this is from 13WMAZ, this article was updated July 18th, 2024. The writer is Reeve Jackson. The title is Georgia High School Athletes Can No Longer Earn Money from NIL Collectives. In the future, if an athlete is caught earning money using NIL from a collective, they could possibly lose their eligibility to play athletics. So what that means is GHSA is going to no longer allow athletes to earn money by using their name, image, and likeness. So that's what NIL means: name, image, and likeness from a club or collective. This change was made on Thursday after the GHSA met with its board of trustees, and they want to, prevent athletes from profiting at the high school level. So what this means is no name, no images, or likeness. Ooh, it's kind of rough. So just know that going in. And then the last thing that was brought up with the bylaws is esports athletes must play physically at school in the presence of coaches and teammates. So I want to say a couple of things about these major points that Tanya brings up. The first major point about students being academically eligible, it shouldn't be a shock or surprise to anybody about that. All students must qualify academically and attend school regularly to be able to participate in extracurricular activities. The second point about the migrant status is really just to prevent students from moving schools just to play a sport, even though we know it still happens. There have been some football coaches in the high school sphere that have been caught multiple times doing that. Yeah, not an esports coach that we officially know of. That's how I interpret it with the migrant status. The third point is straightforward. Fourth point. The fourth point about the amateur status, that actually was implemented because we had somebody who broke amateur status. I don't exactly remember what school it was, but basically they had a student who signed with a professional team that then played esports, and the whole program got fined and then was not allowed to be a program anymore. So make sure that you double check with your kids that they are not earning any money while they are playing. And then the last rule, which is playing physically at school in the presence of others. I think this has become kind of a problem for a lot of coaches. Now, I can't prove it, but some of the chats that I've had with students in the match assistant has kind of indicated that their coach is not with them at the same location. So just make sure that you as a coach are physically in the same room at the same building with your students. Not your students are online and all of you are in Discord together. You have to physically be there so you can monitor the students, monitor the matches, and troubleshoot technology when anything goes wrong. This is still an ongoing issue. So, please don't do this. Too many things can happen if you're not in that room. I've had plenty of times, when a student has violated the rules for play versus, and we point it out in the match chat, and then there's radio silence. No acknowledgement or anything. So just make sure that you are doing what you are supposed to do. Okay? So what this includes is, one, make sure that you're playing on a stable internet connection. If you are playing on a wireless device or hotspot, it is a violation of the rules. Connectivity issues can cause problems, and there is a rule in play versus that, you're not supposed to use that. Now, can another coach far, far away prove that you're using a hotspot? I mean, probably not. But, you know what you're doing. Just do what you're supposed to do. Or reschedule. If you're having problems, just reschedule. Okay? Another thing I want to talk about is game of record. So all of this is just coming straight from the Play Versus handbook. These are things that you just need to be aware of. So, yes, a couple of things to be mindful of now that we're going into this new season is something called a GOR, a game of record. Now, this is in the Play Versus handbook, and what a GOR is technically a specific amount of time that has passed during a game, and then that game becomes a game of record. So basically what it is both teams have logged in, they loaded in, and the game has progressed to a point of meaningful interaction. So once a game obtains this GOR status, the period ends where incidental restarts may be permitted, and a game is considered official from this point onward. So after establishing your game of record, game restarts are technically allowed, but only under limited conditions. So what I ran into last season, again, this is specifically Madden. I didn't encounter this in any other esport, is students would disconnect. Maybe, something happened, internet connection, whatever, and it would be, it would be at suspicious, like super sus times. Like one kid didn't, experience any technical issues until we started beating him. Like 20 minutes had passed in the game and everything was fine. And suddenly once it was clear that we were going to win that match, suddenly the other student was having connection issues. So coaches, just be aware that once a certain time has passed, students are not going to be able to claim that. So a game of records are usually by title. So for the spring state championship titles that we just had, that's Splatoon, Rocket League, Madden 24, and NBA 2K. So a game of record in Splatoon 3 is established under the following conditions. When players are launched onto the stage. For Rocket League, a game of record is established when the game timer reaches the end of the countdown and states go. For Madden, a game of record is when any player kicks the ball off or the clock has ticked for at least 1 second. For NBA 2K, a game of record is the initial jump ball happens or the clock ticks to at least 1 second. Now, again, if something does happen, Play Versus does have a list of specific rules that you can use, in case that occurs. So, if you are having issues, just let the coach know via match assistant or call them. And actually happens more often than you think when a student, they'll start losing and they'll just quit before the game is over. I've had maybe 1 or 2 students do that, but they're usually heavily penalized when they do that for me because that's just not good sportsmanship, and I try to teach them good sportsmanship. So if there's any connectivity issues happening while you're playing, just let the other coach know. So another issue that was ongoing in this past season is, and this is again specifically with Madden, players would pause the game without warning. So there are rules for pausing or stoppage of play. There are several incidents that I've had people stop and pause the game. I would contact the coach via the chat messenger through the Play Versus website. Sometimes the coach would respond. Sometimes the coach would claim they've never heard of such a rule. And then I would end up posting the rule in the chat for them to see. So the official rule for stoppage of play, this is 7.3 stoppage of play that can be found in the Play Versus handbook. If a player intentionally disconnects without notifying a coach or league official or pausing, a league official is not required to enforce a stoppage. During any pause or stoppage, players may not leave the match area unless authorized by their head coach. Coaches should communicate any disconnections in the Play Versus match lobby chat. So this is 731 direct pause. League officials, that's GHSA, Play Versus, may order the pause of a match or execute a pause command on any player station at the sole discretion of league officials. So, meaning they can just pause the game whenever they want to or command you to do it. Now, unauthorized pauses. This is 7.3.2. If a player pauses or unpauses a game without permissions from the coaches, that is, both coaches, it will be considered unfair play and penalties will apply at the discretion of league officials. So, yes, Rule 7.3.2 has gotten a lot of coaches, especially in Madden. Coaches, your students are not allowed to pause the game, and they're especially not allowed to pause the game and then switch out players on their team. So, your students should not be pausing without letting your opponent know or letting you know or even getting permission. So, again, this is why I stress the importance of being present and active in the Play Versus chat feature. And I know that's hard for larger schools. I've done it. It's not easy. I have a laptop that I'm normally attached to, and I'll have however many tabs open, and each tab is a match. And in that tab, I'm communicating back and forth with that coach. Now, sometimes my wires get crossed and I forget what match I'm in and what game I'm doing. But, at least I'm there. I am active. So just make sure that you're there, you're active, and you're paying attention to what your students are doing. So what happens, if somebody pauses it, they don't tell you, or you need some kind of immediate action to happen during a match? Well, during a match, you should immediately submit a Play Versus support ticket, and then you can share in the match lobby chat hey, I tried to resolve this with you. We couldn't resolve it. I'm leaving a dispute with the league official. The match must be paused until the in-game violation has been addressed by the Play versus admin in the match lobby chat. In-game violations must be addressed before the match is complete. Okay? And, sometimes it might get ugly. Hopefully not, but sometimes it has in the past. So let's talk about the winners. I know I've harped on things that people should be doing, and it might come off as negative. It can contribute to an overall negative experience for coaches. That is true. But let's talk about some positive things. The results of the spring season for esports. So the season finished around May the 1st. If you're an educator, April and May, it becomes bananas. It is bananas. I love Winnebago, man. Anyway, non sequitur. I'm sorry. Yes, with testing and finals and all that, it's just a crazy time. So, hence why you're suddenly getting a podcast episode almost at the beginning of August, because I've been recouping and recovering. So anyway, let's talk about the winners. All right, for Splatoon 3, there was FCS Innovative Academy located in Alapaha, Georgia. They came out on top as the state championship team for Splatoon 3. For Rocket League, we had Vikings RL1 from Trulin Middle High School in Soperton, Georgia. For Madden 24, we had I can't pronounce this, Dotu from Marriott High School. And then NBA 2K, we had Westlake Donovan from Westlake High School. So congratulations to these teams and their victories and their invitation to the Play Versus Cup. For those of you who don't know, the Play Versus Cup is an exclusive competition where all the winners from each state championship is invited, and they compete during the summer, of course, for a variety of prizes and bragging rights. So congratulations again to those guys. So I do have a couple of quick announcements that you may or may not have heard of before I wrap up this episode of the podcast. Play Versus has introduced middle school leagues. That's right. For the first time, we are getting officially sanctioned middle school leagues in Play Versus. So if you go to the Play Versus website and click middle school, you have an overview and parents, and then the titles that they are currently offering includes Rocket League, NBA 2K, and I cannot tell what that last thing is. There's a symbol on here, but I do not know what that game is. Oh, it's chess. Okay. So it's Rocket League, NBA 2K, and chess. So those are what you have with middle school. So, sign-ups are currently ongoing for that. So make sure you sign up if that's what you want to do. Middle school is going to work a little bit differently than high school just because of the age issues. So parents are going to have to be more heavily involved than they already are. And Play Versus is going to take care of that. Hopefully. I can't get this website to load. But anyway, Play Versus will come out with more information on that. The second thing I wanted to talk about is there is a new esport that has been introduced at the high school league, and I just kind of goofed them up with the middle school league, but it's chess. That is correct. Chess is coming to high school esports, and let me tell you, I was very surprised at the number of students who showed interest in chess. Because I'm a goober, and I just didn't think that high school kids would be interested in chess because they're too busy, interested in the pew pew FPS shooter games. It kind of shows what I know and makes me check my own assumptions and biases sometimes. But yeah, we're introducing chess. I don't really know the rules yet. I don't know if the rules have been posted. I do know it's going to be 3 players. let me see, match instructions. Yeah, nothing's been posted yet with the match instructions or the rule book or how that's going to go. So none of that's been posted yet. So I have no information for you other than they have announced that we have chess. It is for middle school and high school. It can be played on the PC, the Mac, the tablet, or mobile. They're actually using chess.com for high school and Chess Kid, which I think is a part of chess.com for middle school. I did make myself a free chess.com account at the end of last year, and I haven't touched it since because I do not know chess, and I'm going to have to teach myself to help my students. So there you go. Those are the big news for this episode. Again, I am sorry that it's been a hot minute since you've heard from me. I'm going to try to do better, but, I make no promises. Working a full-time job and doing anything on the side is hard. Thank you again for all your love and support. Please like, please subscribe, please comment. I would love to interact with people instead of screaming into the void like I often do. So please comment. I'd love to have an academic conversation with anybody in the comments. So thank you, and bye.
Thank you for listening to the Esports Report. Be sure to subscribe, find us on YouTube, and leave a review.